Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
And back with us today is David Quintiri, the author of The Money GPS. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me on.
All right. Well, the big news today is that the UK left the European Union. This was somewhat unexpected. I think polls were showing that they weren't going to vote to leave. But I guess, what is your perspective on this? And does it show that in the UK there's this maybe anti-globalist sentiment? Or what does it say about the sentiment in people's minds right now?
Well, first of all, it's positive. It is very positive because they're saying we do not want unelected technocrats running our country. So the majority of people, by a small margin there, but at least the majority of people said we don't want any part of this. So right away, it's positive in that respect. It also shows you that at least those people who voted yes are informed to some degree, that they believe that at least I should go out to the polls, and the turnouts were quite good, that we should get these guys out of here. And so they have use their voice, use their vote in order to make that happen. We have to see how it all plays out over the next coming days and weeks and months and so on. But let's just keep our eyes peeled on this. I think it's very positive. And I do believe that the concern for the globalists, that is, that this could create a domino effect and country after country may get the same idea. We already are seeing talk about that in the news and politicians coming out and saying a few things.
So you're saying that this could possibly be a domino effect and basically end the European Union?
I do believe that country after country could go into their own referendums and suggest the same thing. The issue is that you need a government that's willing to go ahead and do this. They need to basically allow it to all happen. Like this regime currently let this happen because, of course, it costs a lot of money to have a referendum, whether they're willing to spend it or not, and whether they're just willing to go ahead in that direction depends on the people in that particular country. Some may like the European Union. So I know there are some that believe it's good. And if they're in a good situation themselves, they'll think, why do I want to change anything? I'm doing good. I'm earning this amount of money and I have these assets or this and that. Perhaps they don't want to change it. So it all depends, but I definitely have already seen many of the countries suggest that they want to take it in the same direction.
Now, you've also talked about how this isn't actually set in stone yet, even though the people have voted in the UK to leave the European Union. It doesn't mean that's actually going to happen. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Absolutely. I mean, just take a look back in history. As you saw sort of the European crisis, which roughly, let's say from 2011, 2015, you saw a lot of talk about this. Look at Greece in particular. They hold a referendum and it said, we do not want a bailout. That was the turnout. The results was, I believe, something like 60% saying we do not want to accept the terms of the bailout. But guess what? They went ahead and did it anyway. So the referendum didn't mean a single thing, but they just go on. The governments ultimately, and those who control the governments, do not care about what the people think. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen in the UK with this Brexit. They may definitely leave, but let's not get too excited. Let's keep on them. Let's not just trust that they are going to go ahead and do the whole Brexit proceedings. But I'm just a little bit more cautious, a little bit more skeptical. There's a lot of red tape. They could say, yes, we're going to do a Brexit, but we're just having a little bit of financial trouble. We're just going to pass like next year. I promise next year we're going to do it. And then it's next year and so on. I mean, these are things that could happen. I don't necessarily foresee this to happen, but I'm just a little cautious and skeptical.
So what do you think if the UK does follow through and does leave the European Union? How do you think that would affect their economy, the European economy, and the economy around the world?
First and foremost, what we have is some initial volatility. So you do have the stock market on Friday coming down significantly. And it wasn't just in the UK. We saw that going around the world. But at the same time, you saw what they believe are safe havens, like the US Treasuries, which the world generally considers to be safe. So those rose, as well as you saw gold rise as well, silver rise as well. So people are looking for safe assets. The money leaves those areas where the stocks are and floods towards safe havens. So that's the initial reaction. I do believe, however, that this is very positive. All Brexit, in fact, the European Union, as far as I'm concerned, any trade deal that occurs actually makes it worse. It makes it more expensive for the countries doing business. Now, this seems a strange, seems a little bit odd, but basically what you do when you have any sort of trade deal, any sort of union, whether it's the European Union or any others, all that this is, despite the name, if you just scrap the name just for a second, you will see that all of these trade deals are simply corporations creating additional profit for themselves. When they create themselves additional profit, it has to take from the parties involved, and that is the consumers ultimately. So the more of these agreements that get put in place, the more regulations and rules and everything else that has to go in between these two countries, the trade in between those two countries, the more expensive things will be for you and I. So I do believe that the UK exiting is a positive thing for the whole world.
I would like to discuss a little bit about, because you were saying, that the stock market fell after Brexit was announced, the vote count was announced. In the United States, the Dow fell over 600 points, which is about 3%. Now, you were talking about recently in a video you released, you said that this shows the fragility of the economy. Did you want to talk about this?
As you see, corporations, investment funds, hedge funds, individuals, they put their money into the stock market because they don't have a safe place to put it, or I should say a secure place that would provide them with a good investment, longer term, medium term. The stocks provide them with potential. So the money floods there. But as soon as you see the littlest bit of worry, the littlest bit of fear, people pull out. And that is a very good exit. Nothing has happened yet, but the markets come down. Why? There hasn't been any leaving of the European Union. Nothing has taken place except for a vote. When the Federal Reserve says we may increase interest rates, the Federal Reserve says we may print more money, these things actually pull the markets down or up as they see fit. But nothing has happened. It's all rhetoric. It's all talk. That's what shows how weak the market is. If you thought that a company would be around for the next 100 years and profit every single year after year, would you, and they were giving a dividend, would you take your money out? Would you sell from that stock? Well, obviously, most people would not sell the stock despite the fact that, there's turbulence in the market and you believe in that company. Well, it's the same thing for any particular country, any particular commodity, anything. You would leave it in there if it's profiting you. But if you're worried, if you're concerned about something, then you would sell off. And that's what's happening right now, but on a wide scale, a global scale.
No, I'd like to get back to maybe the anti-globalist sentiment that we're seeing around the world right now. I guess, would you agree that that's what brought people to vote to leave the European Union in the UK? And also, it seems like there's also kind of an anti-globalist sentiment in the United States right now with Trump supporters. Did you want to discuss a little bit about that?
I'm seeing it taking place all over the world. Look at what's happening with the Bilderberg meetings. You have more and more publicity around that. It was considered a conspiracy theory before, and now it's just in the mainstream news, and they play it off like nothing. You saw what happened with Occupy Wall Street. That was pretty interesting. Of course, ultimately didn't go too far, but at least it sheds light. It brings it to the mainstream media where average individuals can say, what's all this Occupy Wall Street about? And people start asking questions. And then you have mainstream movies even coming out, shedding light on this. It's all over the news at this point, and it's very positive because average people are starting to ask questions. And what this really brings up is the fact that people want change, but not the Obama type change. They want real change. They want to be able to afford the things that they have. They don't want to be in debt. They don't want to struggle through life anymore. And they're starting to look for alternatives. I think sometimes those alternatives, as you see what happened with Obama, is not exactly positive, but people are looking for something better as the conditions continue to worsen.
Do you see this, I guess, as a positive movement? You were saying with Brexit, you think this is a positive thing. I guess, do you see this maybe waking up of people to want real change? How do you see that playing out in the future? And do you think this is a positive movement?
This whole Brexit issue is going to create a domino effect. Other countries are looking to do the same. You have conditions worsening in countries around the world, and the people are looking for some sort of resolution, whether that is a new government. Sometimes they kick the government out and try to bring a new one in as if that's going to help. But ultimately what I see is that the corporations grip more and more control. Now with leaving the EU, it's going to help some, but ultimately the structure of the governments themselves are built around the fact that corporations are able to manipulate everything. So I think that we need to continue on this uphill battle and try to do our best.
I guess one last question I had for you is, what are the best ways that people can, keep doing our best and fight for freedom?
What we need to do is use what we have. Simply, if you want to keep your freedom of speech, well, then you better speak up. And that's just the way it goes. You can do that in any way, shape, or form, whatever you're best at. If you want to go out there and hold a street sign down at somewhere protesting something, then you should do it. If you want to make YouTube videos, if you want to call your friends, if you want to tell your friends things, do it, because you need that freedom of speech. If you want your Second Amendment, then you get out there and you use that Second Amendment. You can't just lay back and they will plow over us if we do not continue to maintain full charge forward. So that's what I'd say. Everybody needs to educate themselves from YouTube videos, whether that's reading books, reading the history. You need to continue to maintain every single day, maintain your education, whether that's new information coming forward or historical information, which helps for today. So just to finish off, basically what I would say is that people's ability to educate themselves is easier now than it ever has been before, because of the internet, because of everything that technology has allowed us to do. Of course, it's a double-edged sword, but we need to use this technology to our own advantage. We need to share information. We need to basically be able to do our best to topple over these globalists. And we can do so peacefully, we can do so silently, and we can do so having the ability to actually make change.
Well, David Quinteri, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we let you go, are there any last thoughts you'd like to add, and where can our viewers find you online?
I would say that we need to look into the deeper truths. What we see even in the alternative news sometimes is a little bit cloudy, it's a little bit hazy. What I would say is that you need to take the information you're given from any source and then try to get into the deeper context of it, connect the dots in with it. Don't just look at things at face value, look deeper. If you want to find more about me, then you can check out my YouTube channel. It's The Money GPS. I have a website as well, themoneygps.com. I have a free e-course on there for people to learn the basics about financial related things. What is a derivative? What's a bond, etc. So that's all there. I have free ebooks on my site as well. So check me out there.
Once again, David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on.
This video was brought to you in part by ReluctantPreppers.com. Click here to watch Reluctant Prepper's latest interview with Bix Weir, where Bix Weir discusses, should preppers really wish for the end of the world?